Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, we have this really sad case coming out of Nashville, Tennessee, and I'll put the thumbnail up on the screen. Riley Strain, a University of Missouri student, has been missing since 3/8/24, no trace. A credit card found on the shore of the river. So this is day number 12, and that's the Cumberland River. This is day number 12. And of course, you can imagine as a parent, his parents are freaking out over this. His fraternity brothers, everyone from University of Missouri, everyone is praying that they find Riley safe and they bring him home. We're going to give our review and the analysis of this. And some of the toughest cases you'll ever work on as a detective, as a police officer, are missing person cases. And from what I understand, this case, perhaps in the early goings of this case, maybe on the 9th, the next day, early afternoon, it perhaps didn't get the urgency that it maybe should have. And I know that, look, he was already up on the billboards early on. But if we see some of these memes here, the Riley Strain timeline, Riley is kicked out of Luke Bryan's bar. That's March 8th at 9:35 p.m. At 9:46 p.m., that's 11 minutes later, Riley Strain collides with a pole before standing back up. So that sort of indicates a level of intoxication. We'll show you some of those videos later on. At 9:50 p.m., Riley Strain interacts with a Metro officer on Gay Street. And on 1:46 p.m. on March 9th, the next day, a 911 call is made reporting his disappearance. Many people think that an adult who's 18 years of age or older has their faculties together, is not mentally or physically impaired to the extent that they need to be hospitalized, no level of intoxication, that you can wait 24 hours before taking a missing persons report. Well, that's not true. Each circumstance has to be taken on its own merit. And should the police have immediately taken a missing person report on this? Well, I believe they did the next day. And did they find the urgency in it right away? I don't know. I wasn't there, but there's certainly urgency right now. And there's lots of people taking this seriously, and lots of people hoping and praying for the return of this young man to his family. So, folks, we're going to break this down. And tonight I have two special co-hosts with me. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet and tell you who they are. I'm sure they're no stranger to you. So, folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your seats, because you're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
I'm going to get right into this, and I'm going to introduce my special co-host. With me tonight, straight out of Brooklyn, retired NYPD detective, and he hasn't been around lately too often, but I'm glad he's here tonight. Welcome to the show, Detective Phil Grimaldi.
How you doing, Billy? Thank you very much for having me.
Phil, it's always great to have you here. And of course, the voice of reason, the calmness on the edge of the storm, Professor, retired NYPD Sergeant. Welcome to the show, Professor Michael Geary. Mike, welcome.
Billy, thank you for having me on. Good to see you, Phil. Good evening, everybody.
Same here, Mike. How you doing?
Good evening.
Well, Phil, I'm gonna go to you first.
Good.
In this case, missing person cases, they come up probably every single day in police work. And if police didn't have certain guidelines in taking a missing person report, they would do almost nothing else but. You want to educate our audience a little bit about that, Phil?
Sure. I mean, in a case like this, we had a little bit more than just an ordinary person that didn't show up at home or at school. It was a little bit more than that. We knew that he was out drinking in a bar. There was video surveillance that showed he may have been intoxicated. And we know that the last bar that he was at, there was an indication that he may have been intoxicated. They asked him to leave. He didn't meet their standards, their community standards. So with all of those different aspects of this case that were put forward right from the beginning, I'm sure that the police took a report right away and jumped all over it. Searches would be, started up right away. There was a lot of information that came forward since he has been reported missing, and I'm sure we're going to get into all of that.
Absolutely. Mike, one of the things that we find out from the bar, and the bar he was in is called Luke's 32 Bridge. It's owned by a famous country western singer.
Yeah.
They recorded that they only served him one alcoholic drink and 2 waters. That was according to his bill.
Right.
But he was at a level of intoxication that one drink does not make you. So there's 2 things that could have happened. A, that wasn't their first stop of the night.
Mhm.
Maybe they started drinking in their hotel room, or perhaps he took some kind of drug and it sped up his intoxication and made him, basically a victim, a walking victim.
Yeah, walking victim.
And the bar, they asked him to leave. So he must have been exhibiting some type of behavior inside the bar that it came to the attention of the bartenders, who called the club security, the bouncers, and they escorted him peacefully out of the bar. And one of his fraternity brothers walked him out the door and then went back in the bar. So, and I'm not blaming, look, we've all been there, we've all drank, and we've all went to college.
Mhm.
But, hopefully, kids got to look out for each other. That's my only point. Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, Billy, when you look at the video of him, the security videos, you see him walking down the street like within a minute or two on the timeline of being escorted out of the bar. You see that he's impaired. His gait is very unsteady, and it looks like he's 6'5" and he's leaning over and he's very skinny. It looks like he just fall right over. So you're right. They've either drank at some other bar, drank in the hotel. Maybe it was a little less expensive. Go to this bar. And the drinks are going to be a lot more expensive. You got to cover the band, and he left with no violence whatsoever. He was told to leave. He left, and the frat brother, like you say, walked him to the bar, and I guess they're fairly close, maybe 4 blocks down in one straight direction, pretty much to the hotel, the Hilton, and he went like in the opposite direction, which I guess nobody ever thought that would happen. But it's sad because he actually, as you say, when you're that level of intoxication out in public and you're stumbling and you can't even really have a steady gait, your balance is off, it's dark, it's a quiet street. I don't care where you are, anywhere in America, you have that word victim on top, right across your forehead. And if anybody has any sort of ill will towards you, you're very vulnerable to attack. We don't see that in this case here, but it is very distressing to see that he was really very impaired walking down the street, and that makes us all the more sad because he was not in control of his faculties.
100%. I want to play this from the Fox News station.
Police releasing new video of Riley as well interacting with a police officer. We want to bring in Fox 17 Nashville reporter Kelly Avellino. She joins us live with more on that information. Kelly, what more do we know about that video, and is it helping police at all?
Well, that video was taken in the last known spot that Riley Strain was seen. So it doesn't really move the ball down the field as much as the family would hope. I spoke to Chris Dingman today, who is a family friend. Now, he tells me the family is very grateful for all of the effort that police have been putting in. They're certainly grateful that TikTokers found Riley's debit card yesterday behind me over by the riverbank. I can tell you, though, there are some questions at this point. The family is rather perplexed that it took 2 days for a detective to be assigned to this case in the first place. They also are perplexed as to why it is not being considered a criminal investigation at this point. A day after a stunning discovery by 2 young women on TikTok.
And my stomach dropped.
Riley's bank card found on a riverbank near where he was.
I just want to stop right there. This really concerns me a great deal, because not only is it on the top, it's not on the top of the riverbank, but it's all the way down by the water,
Right.
which indicates that he was down there. He was down by the water, and to me, that's very scary. If I was his parent, if I was anyone that loved Riley, this would be very concerning to me. And if we look again, let me go back a little bit and just show about the point that they found it. It's just pretty scary.
Riley's bank card found on a riverbank near where he was last seen is now being analyzed for fingerprints.
How many people have looked at that particular scene and been on it, and it took those specific young ladies to find that card?
But Chris Dingman, a family friend working daily with Riley's parents on any leads, tells Fox 17 News there are concerns over how Metro Police are handling the search. We sent police a list of questions, including why just today this officer body cam video.
How you doing, sir? I'm good. How are you? Good.
Showing Riley in his last known location by the James Robertson Parkway Bridge and the river was released 9 days after it was captured. We asked why an actual detective wasn't assigned to the case until 2 days after Riley was reported missing, according to his family.
I wish something would have been done sooner. We've discussed this. The first 48 is so crucial.
Why emergency management crews didn't appear to search the riverbank thoroughly until Wednesday, 5 days after Riley was reported missing. Urban search and rescue teams hitting the ground on Thursday. There's also this surveillance video that Fox 17 News exclusively uncovered of Riley crashing into a pole.
He hit that pole really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, someone in the chat just said, could he have gotten a concussion from that based on the speed he was running? And he went like head first in it? Absolutely. So, he's intoxicated. Then he hits his head. So he's not really thinking too clearly.
Billy, can I make a couple of points real quick?
We
talked about the fact that he appears to be intoxicated, and he only, according to the bar, he only consumed 1 drink and 2 waters. Now his mother was texting with him and actually FaceTimed him. She said he was in a bar. She didn't say the bar. This was reported by the stepfather. Stepfather's name is Chris Whiteid, and he said that they spoke several times on text message. He didn't appear to be drunk, and they actually FaceTimed, and that he was in a bar. So perhaps he was in another bar before he had gotten to that location consuming alcohol. That's one of the things that we don't know, how intoxicated he was. But Billy, you brought up a very good point. I was thinking about that just before we went on. Perhaps he got injured in that fall, a concussion, just like you said. If you take intoxication and you combine it with a concussion, not only is that really hazardous to your health, obviously, but you're even more of a victim for a lush worker. Mike, you touched on it a little bit there. When I was a transit cop, we had a thing that they would do in the subways. We called them lush workers, where they would go after, they would target people who are intoxicated, fall asleep on the train.
Right.
They would take a razor, cut their pocket, and remove their belongings, or just gently remove a gold chain from their neck, a watch from their wrist, different things like that. So there's a couple of things going on here. We have a missing person. He's definitely got a big victim target on his back because of his condition. He's intoxicated, and there's no question about that, that there's some kind of intoxication going on. Now we have a possible head injury. If he hit that pole in his head and he's got a concussion, you know that a concussion, sometimes the effects of the concussion don't happen right away. You might stand up and not feel dizzy. All of a sudden, a couple of minutes later, you're getting nauseous, you're dizzy, and the effects of the concussion, you're starting to feel it. So all of those things, we have a situation here where it's pretty intense, in my opinion. In two areas. Could he have, fallen someplace and gone into the water and drowned? That's a possibility. Could he be a victim of a robbery gone bad and now it turned into a homicide? That's also very possible.
Absolutely. Let's play this.
Then holding his head. The owner of the shop saying as of 3 days later, he still hadn't been questioned by detectives.
Don't shoot the messenger, but I think if we had people with badges right now that was covering this as strongly as the media has, we'd have Riley home.
After Riley's card was found yesterday, more concerns as to why the area wasn't intensely recombed by police.
My TikTokers were extremely confused why nothing was taped off.
And perhaps the most pressing question for Riley's family, why more resources haven't been brought in as police still consider this a missing persons case and not criminal.
It blows our mind that, the card that was found yesterday in the family's mind is evidence that there was a crime, yet we're being told, well, that may not be what it takes to reclassify this from a missing persons. And that is very frustrating.
The Uvalde Foundation announcing Sunday it's sending volunteers to help in the search effort, stating, quote, volunteers are focusing on the downtown Nashville area as they do not believe current searches along the Cumberland River will produce results. Metro Police not directly answering any of Fox 17 News' questions, but saying in an email, no evidence of foul play has surfaced as work continues to locate Riley Strain. On Sunday evening, Riley's parents met with some of the detective team and received a full briefing on the work being done. They were also shown available video. And Metro Police here in Nashville certainly dealing with staffing shortages, as many other police stations across the country continue to as well. Police here are also looking for a homeless man who reportedly last saw Riley when he stumbled into some bushes along this stretch. Again, the last spot he was seen on camera or by witnesses.
Kelly, thank you for that update. Police have put out several of those updates on social media as well. That includes this one here placed on X, talking about an autopsy performed on an unidentified man that was found deceased in that Cumberland River, saying that showed no signs of foul play trauma. He's possibly Hispanic, wearing black jeans, a maroon shirt, a Puma tennis shoe, and white watch. I want to ask you, though, because as soon as that report came in that police had possibly found a body in the river, were people in Nashville concerned that it could possibly be Riley? What was the reaction to this?
Absolutely. So many local folks who have been following this case, and most importantly, Riley's family immediately rushing down here to the riverside when that report came in yesterday. Again, that body turning out not to be Riley Strain. And just in the last hour, we've had another report of a potential body in this area, that turning out to be a female. So certainly a roller coaster for this family.
Yeah.
So, a lot of information there, a lot of information. It's really, when you see him run and hit his head there, I didn't realize, I had watched that a couple of times. I didn't realize how hard he had hit that pole.
And then he's holding his head further in the later video. So,
and, one of the things also is that it's always said in investigation, do it right from the beginning. Because when you don't, it's very hard to make a U-turn and correct mistakes that you made in the beginning. So perhaps the police didn't take this as seriously from Jump Street as at least that's the allegations from the family. And it's always disturbing when civilians find evidence, very important evidence, in this case, a credit card belonging to Riley, and the police didn't search that area, but yet a civilian thought of doing it. That's embarrassing, Mike.
Bill, yeah, definitely. And, I will say this, hindsight's always 20/20. And the police, obviously, I'm going to say that they are probably working with personnel shortages. They may have, They may, when that call came in, they may not have a detective available in a missing persons unit to run out and grab that case and start that search. So they probably were working behind the 8 ball from the beginning. And they have to search all over the area. And that credit card, you just think about the size of a credit card. You could walk past that and not see it. I'm sure the Metro Police did the best they could given the resources that they have. It's disconcerting to hear that gentleman speaking as if he's some authority on police search and rescue. Really kind of, I really think it's a disservice and really does the public no good by saying that, they could have already had Riley
Mike,
home.
Mike, you hit it on the head when you said hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
That's so correct. But I'm just saying, from the perspective of police, it is embarrassing.
Sure. Oh yeah.
When some civilians canvass an area that perhaps the police should have canvassed, and also allegedly we're hearing that a homeless guy saw him stumbling through the bushes there.
Right.
So that is embarrassing. Someone from the chat, JFK, they showed an opening in the fence where they found his bank card from the cop's body cam. Looks like he could have stumbled down the bank of the river. JFK, I think that's the implication.
Yeah.
And that's.
I think you made that point earlier, Bill, that if you looked at the video, it appears that there's like a drop down towards the waterway. So whatever terrain is there, it looks like it does steep down. So if you're in an intoxicated state and you wind up in that area, you could very easily tumble into, and you add a head injury into the, into the mix, very easily stumble into that waterway. And
Phil, if he was as intoxicated and then had a concussion, I mean, what is your balance like? And rocks, slippery rocks. First of all, we can't even imagine why he was there, and what he was lost perhaps, and just wound up there somehow. I want to play. This is the detective from Tennessee, and this is again 12 days after this occurred. So let's see. They're now handling this as a criminal matter.
I'm Detective Anthony Chandler. This is Sergeant Bob Nilsson. We're with the Homicide Cold Case Unit from Metro Nashville Police, and we've been heading up.
It's a little bit low, Billy.
I know, but he's standing back from the mic.
Like I said, we've been in contact with him since the very beginning, coordinating what we could as far as with the family's active participation in locating Riley. That has been, and to this day remains, the top priority. There has not been any evidence that has come forward to change this to an ongoing criminal investigation at this time. Regardless of what else has been put out there, there are several leads that we are following up with on a constant basis, and an influx of information is coming forward at all times. We are going through every single piece of that information, but the priority remains locating Riley.
As he said, I'm Sergeant Nielsen. I gave a briefing to our chain of command all the way up to Chief Drake yesterday. They're well aware of where we are with the investigation at this point, as well as the resources. We do have our boat going back in the water this afternoon, along with members of the Urban Search and Rescue team that will be combing the area, researching the area. It's been mentioned already today, and it's also been asked, things like, why was that card found and why didn't we find it? As Mr. Flagg pointed out, there's a lot of variables in these investigations, and if you've not been skilled or trained or experienced in these investigations, you don't understand a lot of these things. As Don Aaron put out the other day, when we start a missing person investigation, we're looking for a person, we're looking for a body. We're not looking for small pieces of evidence. Can we miss some things? Sure. But our primary goal is to find Mr. Strain and bring him home safely. Think of it like a large crime scene. A lot of times you have to deal with the victims first before you can go back and start looking for those precise pieces of evidence. Okay, that's kind of our focus here. We're looking for Mr. Strain, then we go back and look again. And because these two ladies over here were kind enough to volunteer their time and helped us by finding that, now we can do a more refined search with our Urban Search and Rescue, which is what they're going to be doing this afternoon. And as Mr. Flagg said, with a lot of volunteers, if you're coming down to volunteer, understand it is very treacherous terrain. That's why we're using Urban Search and Rescue and not just anyone on the street, because our people are trained, they're equipped, they have everything that they need to conduct these searches. You won't even see a patrol officer go to some of these areas that are more treacherous. Why? Because they don't have the rappelling equipment and things of that nature. So we're utilizing all the resources we can. We've also going to be reaching out to Office of Emergency Management. They've been helping us quite a bit. Over the weekend, they've been back out with a boat, divers, cadaver dogs. They run sonar. Our boat has sonar. It's the same stuff. People have asked about TBI. It's the same resources they have. So there's not been a need for us to get additional assistance from these other agencies. However, like Mr. Flagg, Cajun Navy, they have that experience. They want to volunteer their time. They've been very gracious in talking with us, saying they're going to help us out. Not a problem at all. But again, if you have a structured organization like United Cajun Navy, you have the safety protocols in place. You have the
I think we're right now we're hearing a lot of almost apologetic type posture from the police department, and I don't want to say excuses, but that's what it seems like to me. Is like they're trying to play catch up a little bit because initially perhaps they didn't take this as seriously as you said, Mike. Perhaps they don't have the resources to go after this full court press right from the beginning. Get the Navy in there, get all the boats in there possible, their emergency services units. One of the things that I would like to know if they did, and this is part of our procedure in the NYPD in a missing person case, is to search the residence of the missing person. In this case, it would be the hotel room. And why would we do that? Why would we do? Well, we might find some evidence in that hotel room that perhaps could give us a potential reason why he was that intoxicated. A reason, could we find a sign of perhaps depression or something like that? But that is part of the procedure. I would be interested to know if they performed that search, Mike. What do you think?
Billy, I hope they did because I would think that would be the standard thing to do because there may be, like you say, there may be pills, there may be empty beer bottles, that sort of thing. You can talk to other people in adjoining rooms because he'd been there for several days on the spring trip. So I would hope they do. And I will say this also. When the police were called out and they were doing the search of that area, and supposedly they did the search along that riverbank, where it pretty much walked right past where that ATM card was found. If they had done that initial search in the evening at night or something like that, with flashlights, they would have missed that card. And like that detective said, we're looking for a human being. That we're not looking for a credit card. So, I think that people should be careful in their criticisms of the police. This may have gotten off to a slow start. We don't know. We don't know what the resources they had, but they seem, they've probably gone over the whole area several times now looking for something else. You've got that card. Where's the wallet? Are there any shoes? Is there a shirt there? Is there a watch there somewhere around that area? With something that might have fallen off of him or out of his pocket, a pair of glasses, that sort of thing.
Mike, even in the daytime, you could miss
Yeah.
items because of debris at the water bank. I mean,
Sure.
those girls that found it, thank God that they did.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it was done at night, obviously with a flashlight, it's very easy to miss stuff. But
Right.
again, if there's debris and different things of that nature in that area on the bank, which I'm sure there is, it could easily be missed even in the daytime. So, and like the officer said, they were looking at this as a missing person looking for a body. But one other quick point, I did see a report that they talk about this as like a college town, and perhaps the police didn't take it as seriously as first. Maybe they thought he went off with a girl somewhere and he's going to turn up. They've had these cases before. And it sounds like for a day or two, it was kind of stalled, but then it got into the right gear once the detective was assigned. And in my opinion, I mean, from my experience in the NYPD, there's very little difference between a criminal investigation and a missing persons investigation. It's the same resources, same detectives and police officers that are out doing the searches, doing the background. So the labeling of it as a criminal investigation, okay, that's going to make everybody happy, but there's very little difference in my mind. It's a missing person case where there's obviously extenuating circumstances here, and it's a full court press in my mind at this point.
Phil, I'm just a little bit perhaps concerned that if you notice, the detectives that were on it now are from cold case homicide. So usually the best detectives are in those units. So perhaps someone got a size 11 to their butt and made the police department really shake it up and take this. And I'm not saying they didn't take it more seriously, but look, on the NYPD, a homicide on East 72nd Street will get 10 times different resources than a homicide on 125th Street and Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Yeah.
They will deny that till the end of time.
That's reality, though, Billy. That's reality.
Well, I'm just saying here, perhaps they didn't take this as seriously from minute one. Maybe the family's got some juice. Maybe they know some people. Maybe some big phone calls were made, and it made the police take this. And I'm not saying they didn't take it seriously, but maybe they didn't assign the resources minute one to this that perhaps they should have had. And authority from the chat, his phone and watch went off at the same exact time in the same area. They were not shut off. They just went dead.
What does that tell you?
But Anne Marie Doherty, what that could also mean is, could they have been submerged in water?
Exactly.
Right.
And they were destroyed. And that's a horrible thought, but is that a possibility? Yes. Lisa Mounts, shirt with vomit on it has to be valid. It was info out before this latest. Witness talked to Riley, heard him on the phone, someone, then later walked a bit and vomited. There's also a report that a homeless person was wearing his shirt. I don't know if that's been verified. JFK, well, damn, you found 2 bodies. Why weren't you searching them when they went missing? JFK, what happens sometimes when bodies go into the water, they could be a missing person or a homeless person. Sometimes they get submerged and they stay under the water for a period of time. And in some cases, I don't know what the weather was like. In some cases, the water's frozen or the top is frozen, so they don't float to the top. And I know this is Tennessee, which is technically in the South. So I don't know. Well, it is in the South. It's not technically in the South.
Yeah.
Or if their rivers do freeze, I don't know.
Billy, there was something that was put out by the police saying that they were going to be burping the river. Now, burping the river is a basic shutdown of the waterway, which allows anything near the river, to anything near or in the river to float to the top. Now, in that area, we don't know what the currents are, and we all know how currents can change. There's items underneath the water that could divert currents, wind, weather, all different things. And with the fact that a body goes into the water, you made the point, Billy, the water temperature could make it stay underwater longer. Currents can make it stay underwater longer. So they're doing some type of what they call burping the river. They're employing a system where they're going to shut down the waterway, where there won't be any currents. And perhaps if there is something in the water, a body, it would float to the top. So they're going to they enlisted that today in the hopes of maybe seeing if anything does float up to the top. Could be evidence as well. So that's one of the things that they're doing.
You know, our friend Dr. Debbie Goodman was on Court TV, and I want to play what Dr. Debbie said. She's a friend of this show, and she's really a smart lady.
Goodman, I want to turn to you next, please. You are an expert in criminology, and based on these facts, I'm curious if you believe that something criminal happened to Riley Strain.
Well, good morning, Julie, and always a pleasure to join you. What I believe is that there is some potential here for a drug component. When we look, Julie, at the decorum, the demeanor, we see him on the surveillance, something just simply is not right. So when something doesn't look right, sound right, feel right, we have to look at all options. Let's talk about what we know. Here's what we know. It's the month of March. And we know that we have nearly 1 million college and university students between the ages of 18 and 24 who are traveling to various locations within the United States, traveling abroad. Here's also what we know. Information from the CDC, our Center for Disease Control, WHO, our World Health Organization, points to an uptick, Julie, unfortunately, in what we refer to as club drugs. So that would be categories such as methamphetamine, fentanyl, ecstasy, the psilocybins. These are the hallucinogenic drugs. So whether a drug was ingested willfully and or against one's will, I think potentially these are the conversations that families need to be having with their loved ones about safety, security, and survival.
Most definitely. Excellent insight as always, Dr. Debbie. Thank you for that.
So I think Dr. Debbie, and she's a great lady. Hello, Dr. Debbie. We have her on our show quite frequently.
She's
I
excellent.
I think she hit it on the head. He probably could have taken some type of drug because, and everyone in the chat was saying, I forget the term they use. We used to call drinking before you went to a bar tuning up. We used to call it in the police department, right? Let's tune up a little bit, like we were instruments. We were instruments, but so that was the term. So I'm sure college kids use their own different term for it than we used. But when you're paying $8 or $10 for a beer in a bar, it's easier just to drink in your dorm room or in your hotel room, and then when you get to the bar, you're significantly on your way. But there is a good possibility that he took some type of drug. And, if the bar, Luke's 32 Bridge, if they're correct and they only served him one alcoholic drink and 2 waters, then he didn't get intoxicated there. He came into the place or he took some type of drug while he was in there. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, some of the people are using the term like roofied, like someone may have slipped something in his drink. And so you never know. There's all these possibilities, and I'm sure by now the police have looked over the bar video, and the family's probably seen it too. And so therefore trying to verify what he was given to see maybe if someone slipped something in inadvertently, he didn't know about it. But that has to be, as Debbie Goodman said, that has to be a possibility that has to be looked at. You have to have some sort of talk with the parents. Did they ever see him or know of him using any sort of narcotic? And you have to be totally honest at this point. There's nothing to lose. And so, that is, and you've had college age children. I've had that. Phil's had that. And, you have to have talks about.
Mike, I still talk to my 32-year-old children and my 29-year-old children about responsibility and drinking. And
it never ends. It never ends.
Obviously, these days, the whole drinking and driving thing, you can get an Uber. We didn't have Ubers when we were kids, and I'm not making any excuses for drinking and driving, but I say that to my son all the time, take a damn Uber, leave your car at home,
Right.
An Uber. So if an Uber costs you $50, an attorney wants $10K right at the beginning of a DWI.
And try 25 and up.
Yeah, I said he wants a $10,000 retainer. So pay for the damn Uber, right? Southern Mom. Our rivers don't freeze here in Middle Tennessee. Thank you, Southern Mom.
Thank you.
What do I know? I'm a New Yorker. I don't know about those Southern rivers.
Bill, can I put another component into this story? Let me put another component, a couple of components into this story. Now, perhaps he was on, we're talking about narcotic interaction. Perhaps he was on medication. Was he on some type of a psychological medication? Did he have depression? And now he mixed that with that one drink, or maybe he did some pregame, as we saw in the chat, people talking about pregame. Did he do pre-drinking? And that could have caused him to become, his gait is off. He's stumbling around. And then the other thing is, the obvious seems to be that it looks like perhaps he went into the water. But there's also the possibility, and I talked about it earlier, there's homeless people in the area. He's a giant target. He's walking around like that. He's a mark. He's an easy mark. So perhaps something of that nature could have happened to him. If he's hit over the head and robbed and he's dragged into a corner somewhere, that's why I think there needs to be an extensive search of all of that area. And then the other thing is, his cell phone is going to tell a great story. What was he texting about before. I'm going to talk about even the day before or earlier that day. What were the text messages like? Did he have a fight with a girlfriend? Was he in a depressed state? Was he talking about, getting high on a narcotic? All of those things are going to be very important. And then the other thing with the cell phone, we always talk about this. Cell phone is like a tracking device. There's going to be a map that's going to show. That's why the searches, when that phone went off or wherever it led to, that's where the searches should have started at. And I'm not certain that that's where the searches did start, but perhaps that's where the debit card was found, and it's all kind of fitting together, So there was a lot of scenarios here that need to be looked into. That's what the investigators are for. We don't have access to the case folder, as we always say, but the demeanor did seem to change a little bit there, Billy. So perhaps there is something that we don't know about in this case too,
Absolutely. Angel Mom, where is the person with him by the riverbank that the homeless man said he was told he's just drunk when Riley fell into the bushes?
Good
and the
question.
homeless man yelled up, is he okay? Hopefully, Angel Mom, the police know who that guy is and they have interviewed this person. But what if this homeless guy says he fell in the bushes and that was the last time he ever saw him? Does that exclude him from at some later point of falling into the river? And that's what Phil was also talking about. The GPS on the cell phone will indicate that once they can get that back. Sandra Engstrand, okay, I'm going to get beat up about your rivers. All right. Rivers in the South don't freeze. Okay, you guys want to beat me up?
Thank you for the info. Thank you.
Okay, here I got another one. Sarah Sykes. No, the river was not frozen. Okay, I apologize. Rivers in the South don't freeze.
See, where we're from in the Northeast, we go through the 4 seasons. And unfortunately, a lot of times from our experience, if a body goes in the water, it could go in let's say, the late summer to fall, and the water gets cold, it'll hold the body down until the water gets warm again in the spring. And that's when the bodies do come up. So I think that's what Billy was trying to, maybe indicate. So that's just what we're used to up here in the Northeast.
Dr. Vinny Bumbatz, they found a body in the Cumberland River just 3 days ago. It's a fast-moving current, and if you hit your head going down, it's curtains. Yeah, I mean, look, the Hudson River and the East River, their currents are no joke either. I'll tell you that much.
Treacherous.
That place, Hell's Gate in the East River. I mean, that probably I'd see people from Jupiter. Kite casting, kite surfing on the Hell's Gate if they were in New York. I see people doing some crazy stuff here. I want to play a little bit of Banfield here.
Cameras and critical witnesses, all that's invaluable. But to really understand the last known wanderings of a college student who hasn't been seen or heard from in 11 days, you have to be there. And my colleague, Evan Lambert, is. He's live in Nashville tonight. He spent part of the day retracing Riley Strain's steps. Evan, I'm so glad you're doing this because even with the maps, I get confused. Can you walk me through Riley's path?
Yeah, Ashley, with those several data points on the map, it is confusing, especially if you don't know the area. And so we did spend a good part of the day walking around. And what I can tell you from the area here by the river where we are, where Riley Strain was last seen, to really where this story starts at the first bar that he was asked to leave. It's really only about a 15-minute or so walk if you're walking directly. Of course, we don't know the exact route he took because we have little pieces on surveillance video, but it is not terribly far away. But we took a look at all of those points a little bit earlier. Check it out. 9:35 on the night, Riley Strain goes missing. According to Luke Bryan's bar here on the corner of Broadway and 3rd, he was asked to leave after being served 1 alcoholic drink and 2 waters. Then 11 minutes later, a surveillance camera at downtown Smoke Shop catches Strain running and then falling near a pole in the parking lot. He gets up and continues out of the frame. A minute later, another camera catches him cross 1st Avenue North to Gay Street. At this point, he's less than half a mile from Broadway. And finally, our last pictures of Strain are here. Body camera video catches him interacting with a Metro Nashville police officer and appearing to be fine.
How you doing, sir? I'm good. How are you? Good.
This is just across from the Cumberland River, and take a look at how steep this is in this area. It's basically a cliff, some 30, 40 feet down to the water's edge. This whole area is
Now they found his debit card at the bottom of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, that to me, if I was a parent and seeing this, this would terrify me. You know, I mean, I would pray that he got someone took that car from him at another location, you know, and dumped it there. But if he was down there, that's not a very hopeful sign, I don't think.
Covered with litter, debris, trash, homeless encampments. This is where TikTokers say they found Strain's debit card. It is nowhere near, about a half mile away from his hotel, which is off in that direction, nowhere near where he's seen walking and his last cell phone pings are. And so it's very clear, Ashley, where the last pictures and the last cell phone pings are. Riley was not anywhere in the direction of the hotel that his friends thought he was going to make it to. Ashley?
Okay, Evan, I have this one question for you. In that last part of your stand-up, you're standing under a bridge, right? And that's typically where a lot of people would congregate because there's shelter. So there's a lot of homeless people who use, areas under bridges. Was it a walkway though? Like I was struggling to find out, would Riley have ended up walking under that bridge, or would he have had to decide to leave a walkway, scramble down to some people down there to have a chat? Like how would he have ended up in that spot if he was?
Yeah, so where we are, there is a sidewalk that goes around, and there's a balustrade, and then essentially a cliff, as I showed before, 30, 40 feet down to the riverbank. Now, there are a couple other areas of land a little bit over that guardrail, so maybe 15 feet down, there's some land, and then you can walk further down. But it's not designed really for people to go down there. But some people do, and that's where some of the people that are experiencing homelessness, that's where their encampments are, in those woods just over the guardrail. So you would have to be very intentional, or just really not having coordination at all, inebriated to the point where you might be sitting up and potentially fall, and then possibly roll down even further. But it is really a dramatic. When I got here, I didn't understand just how far it is from where we are standing, where Riley was walking in that body camera video, to the river embankment all the way down. And it's almost like you'd really have to try, but there is a way that if you were so inebriated that we saw him falling, it is possible that he fell and continued to go down that direction. Under the bridge, there is another bridge that he would have potentially crossed underneath after that video, but that's just along this sidewalk right here. So no stairs or anything to get down there.
It's mysterious. I mean, just perplexing. Evan Lambert, thank you for that.
I don't think it's that mysterious, to tell you the truth. I think the possibilities. But look, I don't want to discount anything at this point. Could there be foul play? Absolutely. Could it be as simple as he walked toward this river? He was very drunk, disoriented. He hit his head. Perhaps he took some kind of drug and he fell down that embankment and wound up in the water. That's a distinct possibility. But I don't want to discount anything because we don't know all the answers to this. People are coming forward, according to the detectives, all the time with information. The rise of darkness right past the first bridge where the debit card was found is where he most likely went over the wood railing to pee or puke and lost his footing, sliding down that huge cliff. Selwood quit in the water. The rise of darkness, you're a little bit scary with that name, but that's a potentially very possible what you just suggested.
Billy, I had a very similar case. I had a college student that had disappeared. His body was found in the water weeks later. And the conclusion of our case was, without getting too graphic, that he went to the water's edge to urinate, slipped on rocks, fell in, and drowned. So I had a very similar case. This was back in the 90s. And, it was a little bit hard for the family to accept all the details of the case. But after we did extensive investigation on the case, working along with the medical examiner's office, these are the conclusions that we came to. So I think that person really kind of simplified it. I mean, I'm not going to discount, like you said, I'm not going to discount anything. Anything's possible in this case. I'm not the assigned detective. I don't have the case folder in front of me. The possibilities that exist, we talked about all the different possibilities. Could have been a victim of a crime, could have been a victim of a medical issue with falling down, a concussion, could have just been intoxicated, could have been taken upon by homeless people, or it could just be a horrible accident. And I'm kind of leaning in that direction based on what I know. And when you look at the steepness of that embankment, if you stumble into there and you're complete, 9 o'clock in the morning, straight after breakfast with a cup of coffee, and you don't have any intoxicants, you can stumble down that embankment. So with all of that said, it's going to be interesting to find out what the investigation does reveal, and just hope and pray for the family that the victim in this case, Riley, that he's found.
Absolutely. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your family, your friends, your pets, everyone. We'll take anyone. And if you want to contribute to us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we have a YouTube channel membership with, count them, 5 different levels. We appreciate all of our fans, all of our friends, all of our subs that support this show and make it possible to do what we do. Maria Gutierrez, I believe it was foul play. Homeless wearing his shirt. I don't believe he fell in the river on his own. I think Riley was murdered by robbing him. Well, Maria, that's a possibility, but we have no evidence of that right now. But thank you for your input. Schmitty, thank you. Member for 29 months. Schmitty is in the right place. Thank you, Schmitty. Thank you for your support of this channel. Oh, let me bring my friends back on. I forgot they were even here for a second.
Billy, I got to make a comment on that last comment. We don't call it foul play until we find foul play. Now, I'm not saying that the foul play didn't come into this investigation. A lot of people say, well, it's foul play that a 22-year-old or whatever he is, 20-year-old college student is missing. Yes, that's unusual, absolutely. But there's no indicators here of something like what that person described, him getting hit over the head or sat upon by homeless people. We don't really know that yet. And with regard to that information that they're talking about, the homeless person wearing his shirt, there was a woman that said that she reported that she goes to feed homeless people, and she saw one of the homeless people wearing a shirt that she believed could have been Riley Stein's. So I'm sure that they did follow that up. That's a major piece of information that you're going to have to follow up on that. Did they find that homeless person and interviewed him and find that it's not his shirt, or did they include it? That we really don't know.
Absolutely. Let's hear his dad.
To please share it.
Those listening, they're going through the timeline, and they're saying there's no evidence of foul play right now. Strain and his friends were at Luke Bryan's bar, Luke's 32 burglaries that started out at 9:35 p.m. according to his statement. Bar. Statement goes on to say that Strain was found to be killed by one of his friends who returned to the bar after Riley Strain left. That's disturbing to me, and I know it is to anyone watching this that's a parent. Anyone that would think that your son's, your daughter's friends, if they were in an inebriated condition, intoxicated condition, that they would help them. There was this famous case in New York many years ago. A John Jay College graduate student named Ahmet Sengian was at a bar called The Falls in Manhattan, and she got very much intoxicated. And it turned out the bouncer was a serial rapist, an actual serial rapist. And he was hired to be the bouncer at this bar. He basically kidnapped her and murdered her. And that was one of the most horrific things. And same thing, she was with her friend. And her friend said,
Her friend left her.
Her friend left her at the bar. And again, you can't leave an intoxicated friend anywhere and let them up to their own devices when their own devices are so impaired like that. Mike, Professor Mike.
Yeah, Billy, this is but there are people out there who are hunters, like this guy who was the serial rapist. There are people, unfortunately, who are hunters, and they're looking for opportunity. And if they see someone who's intoxicated, to a point or narcotics use, and they're stumbling, they've got the word victim right across their forehead, they're going to pounce on them, and it's terrible. That's just something that for many years people have always said. You know, you have a buddy system. You stay with your buddy no matter what. And that's one of the sad aspects of this case is that he was with fraternity brothers. These are people that he was a member of the fraternity for 4 years. He's a senior, and they not even one of them could have just walked back to the hotel with him. It was 9:46 at night or 9:35 at night. One of them could have walked them 15 minutes to the hotel and come back to continue partying if they wanted to. Yeah, they actually. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be critical, but they let him down. That was a brother fraternity member, and they had the responsibility to help him make sure that he could get home, and they didn't do it. And that's sad. And I hope it's not a fact that somebody victimized him. I hope not. I hope not. No one victimized Mr. Strain, but that's the sort of thing that is makes you very vulnerable to whatever, like you said, slipping in the water when you're urinating, falling into the river. We had that happen once in my old precinct. A guy got drunk and was swimming off in the East River, and he drowned. His body never came up, and divers had to go in the next day and bring up his body. And it's really sad. Just fooling around, just having fun, and he was intoxicated. That's really sad.
Design rhythm. Look at how coherent he was talking to the cop. You think 5 minutes later he couldn't swim? Was that out of it? Well, look, I don't know. I think it was after he talked to the cop that he hit his head on the pole. So that could have very much contributed to his state.
Billy, what made the cop say something to him? Perhaps the cop observed him stumbling. Just at that moment, he didn't sound like he was intoxicated. I do agree with that. But he sounded like maybe a little bit drunk or whatever. And perhaps what was the reason that the cop said that to him? Does the cop say that to every person passing him? And I think the cop was investigating. There was a broken window on the pickup truck. So he had his attention on the pickup truck. What brought his attention to him? Did he see him stumbling, further up the block before the body camera really went into that direction? That's one of the questions that I'd have. What made him say that to him? And he did answer pretty politely, and he sounded like he was coherent, but I'm just curious as to why the officer did that. He's working on this, a broken window on a car. That's what it appears to be. What was he doing there? He was doing that, but his attention was brought to that young man. What brought his attention to that young man? And I guess that's a question for the officer.
Linda Lou, you won't have evidence if no cameras pick up his image. If you got in the middle of that homeless camp and something happened, the homeless will scatter and not be around. He was attacked. Linda Lou, that's very much possibility. But right now, we don't have evidence of that. So we can't just. I mean, you can speculate if you want, but there's no evidence that that's what occurred. What we do know is that at some point, his watch and his cell phone went dead. Now, there's reasons watches and cell phones go dead. One is the battery dies or the charge dies. And that's somewhat rare. We're all it happens. The other possibility is that both of these items hit the water. And that would kill the watch and kill the phone, I would think, just about immediately. Lobo, W. Knowles, why is nobody talking about this homeless person that witnessed his fall or heard him fall, then in an attempt to help Riley, another person with Riley yelled out to the homeless guy? W. Knowles, we don't know for sure. Do the police have this guy identified? Have they spoken to him? Are they now digging deeper with this? When we put those two detectives on that were from, one was a sergeant, one was a detective, they were from Cold Case Homicide, they're taking this very seriously right now. They're looking at all possibilities. They even indicated it's now being handled as a crime and not as just as a missing person. So that's indicative that they're, believe it or not, they're taking this.
Almost certainly resources are looking for that homeless person 100%. Whether or not they've already been interviewed is another story, but I would say 100% there's resources. And you pointed out, Billy, that detective and sergeant might be the ones that were out looking for that person, but they're going to try and find that person, and perhaps he was already interviewed.
The ghost zapper, they said the staff wouldn't let anyone else leave due to an unpaid bar tab. That's why no one left with him. That could be an excuse too. I don't buy that. All you need is one guy to pay the tab.
If your friend is stumbling out of a bar, you're going to let somebody stop you? I mean, come on, that's a baloney excuse to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm buying that. Let me put this back up and we'll watch some more of this. His video of him walking. There he is stumbling down the street. And he hits the pole. Again, that is some hit. Head first.
It looks like he hit the concrete barrier too. It may not even been the pole, so that's a hard hit.
He's walking around. He looks like doesn't have a friend in the world. He's all by himself, but he looks disoriented. He changes direction. This is when the officer, they have an interaction with an officer at an intersection. And that's when some people said he sounds coherent. But
that's the broken window on the pickup truck that I was talking about.
Right, and something drew the attention of the officer.
Good.
Yeah, he's got his flashlight pointed at the car, but yet he engages Riley, you know?
You found his credit card? We found his credit card. We gotta hang up. We gotta hang up the phone.
She flipped it over and saw his name, and she was like, oh my God, I found his card. I just hope that we find Riley. I absolutely hope that we find Riley. And I also hope that in some way that maybe this inspires other people to help any way they can in any other case, because it really could be anybody.
I think, as I said earlier on, I find it very disturbing. Now, it was over a week later that they found this card, but I find it disturbing where they found it. And, but the thing is, because it's a week later, could it have been taken in a robbery and then dumped there? That is a possibility. And we're trying to touch on all potential scenarios here. Ruby Romaine, thank you so much for the $9.99 super sticker. I was roofied at a bar after having one drink, then kicked out without my friends and didn't know where I was. Thankfully, my family on the street, as I had no recollection of the night. You know, Ruby, that's horrible. And I mean, I don't doubt that occurs. And I don't know if that's what occurred in this case with Riley. But, I mean, look, we are open to all potential scenarios here until the evidence takes us in a direction one way or the other. And right now, to me, I'm afraid that he fell in the river. I'm really thinking that. And whether it was voluntarily he fell in that river, meaning it was an accident, or someone forced him in that, or he was fleeing a scary situation, I don't know. But when you look at the terrain there, how steep it is, and then the fact that there were witnesses that saw him around there, and then the fact that a week later they find his debit card at the bottom, right close to the rocks where the river is, that's very, very, very disturbing to me. Mike?
Yeah, Billy, I always go, and you guys, we've talked about this many times, you go with what is the most likely scenario. You have all the video interspersed of him going from the bar over by the water, the river area, the Cumberland River area, hitting his head, walking quickly, stumbling. To me, that's where everything ended, by the river. If he had gone to the river and then doubled back, you would have seen video of him going the opposite direction, but you didn't. So everything objectively indicates that he may have met his fate, whatever it is, down by that river, and finding that card at the pretty much at the water's edge, like you showed at the very beginning of the show, indicates that it was either thrown down there, it fell out of his pocket, that sort of thing. But when you looked at that TV reporter with Banfield, he was standing there, and you look down. That was that might have been a 45-degree angle going down. That was not gentle, no gentle slope. If you just fell a little bit, you might go head over heels down in that water, and that might have been the end of it.
And Mike, you could also potentially have hit your head on a rock rolling down that embankment.
Yeah.
And look, until, one of the other reasons to canvass that area is to see is there any blood on the rocks? Is there any movement of the rocks or the land, or disturbing of the ground there? Any indication that happened to someone?
Right.
Is there any indication that a human being fell into water at that location? I know we sound like news reporters here because it's tough to find, but that's why you're an investigator. That's why you go there and you shake the tree and see if you can come up with a witness that really saw something and can tell you the story of what occurred that night.
Absolutely, Billy. I'm glad you brought that up, because if he did hit his head on a rock, there could be some hair, skin, blood, critical evidence that his body was there. So that area needs to be, fine-tooth comb. You have to go through it with. You have to use a fine-tooth comb into that search area where the debit card was found. And like the search that they're talking about today, where they're burping the river, they're going to try and see if there's any other evidence in that area. In my opinion, I'm going along with you, Billy. I feel like he's in that body of water. Whether or not he accidentally fell in, was pushed in, or thrown in, that is yet to be determined. I'm sure that there's extensive interviews going on with the homeless in the area. And then is there any video cameras in the area? Obviously, that's going to be something that's going to be checked. There may not be a video camera that will show the exact location, but perhaps if there's a video camera that does show the water, it could possibly show him in the water struggling or floating. Those are the things that I think, the investigators are probably doing at this point.
Absolutely.
It's something that it's a terrible situation. I think a lot of the cases that we do report on are very tough to deal with, but these are the indicators of what happened.
Julia Ann, bottom line, whatever happened, it was preventable by just needed one person to give a care. Julia
100%.
Ann, you're 100% correct. And we all preach to our kids, use your head, don't do anything stupid. If you're anywhere and there's trouble, get the hell out of there, things like that. Common sense things. But sometimes, common sense is not all that common sometimes. And it's sad. In Machadoro, lots of missing people were last at a bar or club. Yeah, well, something. Alcohol is not soda pop, and some people handle alcohol better than others, and some can't handle it. And sometimes bad things happen.
Billy, how did you get that name? That was great that you said it just the way I think it.
Machadoro? I don't know. I must have
Machadoro.
Darlene Wolf, I think he fell in the water, and boots, slippery rocks don't go well together. Darlene Wolf, you're 100% correct. Viv Photography, it said that one of his friends didn't walk with him or all for exactly reasons like this. Viv Photography, again, you're preaching to the choir. We're 100% behind you. I want to play a little of this from Law and Crime.
Situation where he's not allowed to get in contact with someone, or he's unfortunately no longer with us.
A college student missing after a night out in Nashville with his frat brothers. Now, newly released security camera video provides the latest clue in the disappearance of Riley Strain.
I really do think.
I mean, he hit that pole like I think it would have hurt if you were wearing a helmet. That's how hard he hit that pole. I mean,
when they say he took a header, he took a header.
Yeah.
He took a header right there.
First into that pole, how he even got up. I mean, that must have been at least a concussion.
I think that had they had a buddy with them, maybe this could have been stopped.
This is 22-year-old Riley Strain. He's a senior at the University of Missouri, where he's studying business. He's set to graduate from Mizzou this spring. Ahead of that, Riley and some of his Delta Chi frat brothers headed to Nashville for an annual conference. Here's where things go wrong. It was about 9:30 p.m. on Friday, March 8th. Riley's friends reported to police he'd been kicked out of Luke's 32 Bridge Food and Drink. That's Luke Bryan's bar on Broadway in downtown Nashville. Bartenders later told investigators that Riley had been overserved. As he was kicked out, Riley got separated from his friends. He did speak on the phone with one friend, though, saying he was headed back to the hotel. He hasn't been heard from since. To understand the investigation so far, we sat down with former CIA officer and FBI agent Tracy Walder. How does a missing persons investigation begin? I know that the first hours are really crucial.
Well, so it sounds like with him, it was reported missing pretty quickly, within the span of just a few hours, when his friends couldn't get a hold of him. Typically in the case of...
It actually wasn't reported to about, I think, about 1:35 p.m. the next day. So that wasn't, he went missing. He left the bar at around 9:30 or so?
9:35.
9:35. So it wasn't all that quick that he was reported missing. It was till the next day.
Of an adult, there is a lot of time, about 24 hours, that needs to pass before they will go ahead and label that person a missing person.
I don't know what she's
But
talking
because the situation was such where he was basically asked to leave the bar and then disappeared, they were actually able, in my opinion, to get a jump on the case pretty quickly. I think the first thing that they would have done, obviously after initiating the call to police, was look at cameras. I think cameras would be a huge help in a case like this because it's immediate and you can go to those stores and go to those storefronts and ask them for their cameras. This is kind of a dense area, this Broadway area, and I am 100% sure that all of the stores have some kind of functional camera. So that would be the first place that I think they looked at. I also think too, it's going to take a while for them to get the actual meat of cell phone data, meaning, what was in text messages and those kinds of things. But they probably tried to locate his phone through some of the apps that he used, which would be something that they can do rather quickly.
According to reports, Riley's friends tried to track his location via Snapchat, but were unable to find him. Investigators say Riley's phone pinged for the last time at about 10:15 p.m. on the opposite side of Nashville from his hotel. Where does the investigation go from here now that we can't track him on his phone?
So I think the first thing that they're probably going to have to do, and it's my understanding too that they've started with helicopters as well. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I had read. And so I think that is one thing that they're going to do, try to cover a larger amount of area. In my opinion, it sounds to me like there's a 25-minute, gap from when he was asked to leave the bar to when sort of that last ping was on his cell phone. In my opinion, I don't think he got very far as a result of that. I think he probably got lost. And so I think the next thing they're going to do is start searching the river because the river is close by. And so I would imagine they're going to have radar and sonar in the river shortly.
So far, the Metro Nashville Police Department says both air and land searches have been unsuccessful in finding Riley. They also checked all hospitals and jails nearby and have come up empty-handed. Investigators are now combing through security camera video to make note of Riley's last movements before he vanished. The video released this week shows Riley walking alone down the street. Riley appears to be stumbling along as he walks. In this video, you see Riley run into the frame on the right side of the screen before he falls over. He ends up laying on the ground and even struggling to get up. It's about 20 seconds before Riley finally stands up and walks away.
That was definitely a concussion. If he was on the ground for 20 seconds after doing a header into that pole, there's no doubt he got a concussion.
This video is the last time we see Riley with any other people. He's alone, but near a crowd of people crossing the street. As he gets to the other side of the road, you can see Riley trip as he stumbles onto the curb. For a second, he seems to follow along with the group before stopping, stumbling, and turning in a full circle before walking off. Walter says it's apparent by the video that Riley was heavily intoxicated.
In my opinion, it's incredibly sad. He was it sounds to me like he was probably asked to leave the bar because he was quite intoxicated and
So yeah, he was very much intoxicated and was asked to leave the bar. We have all of that. We know that. Uh, the big question is, and everyone in the chat, and we question it too, and woulda, coulda, shoulda, but his friends should have taken better care of him. I think maybe one, at least one, maybe a couple of them. We would hope that if it was our kids, and all you guys in the chat would hope that your kids have good enough friends that they would look out for them and get them home safely, because obviously that's not what occurred here. Phil?
Yeah, listen, I don't think we could stress it enough. You have a buddy system when you go out with your friends, and you don't break that. My kids have had situations where a friend wasn't feeling well, wanted to leave, and they went off by themselves and took an Uber. I don't even like that idea. I mean, even though you say take an Uber, which is obviously the right thing to do if you've been drinking rather than driving, but we don't know who the Uber drivers are sometimes. So try to keep that buddy system. That's very important. I don't want to, attack these friends of his, but these kids are going to have to live with that for the rest of their life. Let's face it. If somebody who wasn't intoxicated was with him, he would not be unfounded right now. He probably would have, made it back to his hotel room. I don't think there's a question about that. In the world of 2024 with narcotic use, fentanyl is out there. And then you have these other drugs like ecstasy and roofies and different things like that. I don't think we could stress it enough, say it enough. You gotta stay away from things like that. Obviously, in this day and age, you get roofied. All right, that's a bad thing. But with fentanyl, you don't get a second chance with fentanyl. So we all know the effects of that, what's going on in this country. So I just stress it, say it to your kids. You keep saying it enough, sooner or later, you throw enough stuff at the wall, they say it sticks. Joe Murray, attorney at law. So now listen, guys, if you found yourself in some type of a criminal investigation or a jam of any sort where you need the legal advice of counsel, Joe Murray is your man. He's not only a terrific criminal defense attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. So he literally knows both sides of defense. If you want to get a hold of Joe, his website is jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702, or you could email Joe at jmurray-law.com. Joe is a big supporter of police off the cuff real crime stories, and there he is on the screen saying, "What do you mean you ain't gonna pay me? Come on, what are you talking about? I got you off." Anyway, guys, Joe, he's the man.
Folks, we're going to start to give our opinions on this, and unfortunately, I have to be pessimistic in this, and I really wish that I could have hope that he's going to be found alive. But I think most of the indication right now is that he went down that embankment and somehow I believe he wound up in that river. This is a really sad situation. I think that's probably what the Nashville police think too, but they got to keep working this case because I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong, but most of the evidence is pointing towards that fact. Professor Mike.
Billy, I'm a cynic, and I have to agree with you. Everything points to that. Nothing points really to any other possibility. It's not like he's going to be turned up somewhere. No. I just pray for that family that they have the strength to get themselves through this ordeal, because we are all parents, and I can't even imagine what they are going through at this time. This is like a parent's worst nightmare. So we should pray for that family and keep them in our prayers.
100%. Phil, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are thoughts and prayers with Riley Strain and his family. It does not look good at this point. I agree with my two compadres, my fellow brothers in blue, that it doesn't look good at this point. I think we would all be overjoyed if he was found somewhere that he had fallen and someone took him into the home to try and give him first aid or whatever, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. A message to my 2 college-age children and their friends and all the kids that could be listening to this and the parents, stay together if you're going to be out drinking. Don't ever, ever leave your friends alone. Not only like in this case, it could be something like somebody trying to take advantage of you or a robbery or any of that thing of that nature. If you're drinking and driving Uber, like Bill said in the beginning, us as parents have enough to worry about. You guys got to do your part. Stay together. Use that buddy system. And Uber if you're going to be out drinking. Again, thoughts and prayers for the family of Riley Strain.
100%. Barbara Rosen. Clearly, he suffered a traumatic brain injury. He hit that pole extremely hard. Surely he's in the river. Hopefully, autopsy will uncover everything he ingested and determine the possibility of a traumatic brain injury. Thank you for those comments, Barbara. And as I said, I would really love to hear tomorrow that they found him and he's alive and he was in a hospital somewhere or something unidentified, but I don't think that's going to happen. And unfortunately, I think the potential that he went into that river is high, and that to find him anywhere else isn't. Apparently, the debit card wasn't used, so it could have fallen. He could have dropped it there. Someone could have taken it and saw all the publicity around it and just dumped it down that embankment. The Nashville police right now are handling this as a criminal matter and not as a missing person case. I would imagine there was a great deal of pressure for them to do that, and that's what they're doing at this point. And as Phil said earlier on, there's really not a great deal of difference between a special category missing person and a criminal investigation. The amount of resources on both of the incidences should be very high, and they should throw a lot of resources at this. Again, with this, they'll have to have aviation. They're going to have all kinds of marine.
Scuba.
Yes, scuba. You're going to have all kinds of boats out there on that river. And I believe it's the Cumberland River. And from the people in the chat, many are talking about how treacherous it is and the currents are ridiculously strong. Let's hope that, again, first of all, let's hope that they find Riley Strain alive. But let's hope there is some closure to this for the family, that there's no recovery or anything, alive or dead. We're hoping and praying for the family that occurs. I don't know what else to say, guys. And unfortunately, we being the police, the former police, we're not the police anymore. We've seen these cases before, and we comment on them from our experience. And if police work does anything to you, it makes you a realist. And when you see a little shining light that there's hope, then you jump all over it. But when you see darkness and you're not seeing much light, you got to sort of call it as you see it. And unfortunately, 3 out of 3 of us on the show are seeing it that way. In fact, in the chat, Lieutenant Peter Pranzo sees it the same exact way. And Lieutenant Pete, thank you so much. Lieutenant Pete,
love you,
Harlem Raid is a real, true American hero. So, guys, say a prayer for the Strain family, and let's hope that the police come up with some leads in this that can bring closure to this family. Folks, thank you so much for listening tonight. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff. Have a great night, and God bless.
Stay safe, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.